Hello and welcome to Connected episode 273. It's made possible this week by our sponsors, Squarespace, ExpressVPN, and Bombas. My name is Stephen Hackett, and I am joined by Mr. Myke Hurley.
Did you get it right this time?
I did. Thank you.
Good work.
Thank you. How are you?
I am very good. Thank you very much.
Good. It's, it's the end of the year. There's excitement, stuff to talk about. I'm glad we're here together, and I'm glad that we are joined by our friend, Mr. Federico Viticci.
Hello, hi, how are you?
Hi. We should say also that there is a fourth, mostly silent person on the episode this week. He can't hear us, but maybe you can poke him, make him say something.
Can you say something?
Hey guys, how's it going?
We can hear John. John can't hear us, I assume.
Yes. Well, you can hear something through my headphones.
Turn him down. But, you shouldn't be able to hear anything through your headphones.
If he can hear through your headphones are too loud.
The problem is the headphones, not the volume is fine, but the construction of these headphones is faulty, I believe. They leak volume.
I noise gate you every week to fix it.
They leak more than the White House, really. So
wow.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So
starting strong today.
The problem is not me, it's the headphones.
I think John deserves to be labeled as a guest on this episode. I think we'll do that for him.
He was there.
Maybe he can be the one word commenter on the show.
Maybe, seriously, when we talk about the Mac Pro, maybe we just swap the two of them out.
Oh, yeah, let's do that.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Because otherwise, there will just be nothing. There'll be silence from Italy. So we may as well just swap Federico for John.
Yes, this is a great idea. I'll go make some coffee.
Perfect.
Yeah. Play with the dogs.
Basically, you'll do all of the things that you usually do when we talk about new Mac hardware, but this time you'll be owning up to them.
Well, you don't know about that. Well, actually, one time I did leave without telling you guys.
I honestly assume that that's what's happening.
And I did a whole thing around the house, and then I came back, and Steven was still talking. So that happened. But that happened once.
Yeah.
Usually I tell you guys if the UPS guy is here.
Yeah. So we'll have John on.
John, would you agree with this plan, John?
Excellent plan.
Perfect.
Okay. We're doing this.
This is going so well. Let's start with follow-up, and I think we can safely say that the year 2020 will be the year of Stephen 2. Because
what do you know?
Because the rumor...
We're not allowing you to Luigi this. We have told you so many times.
He doesn't get the reference.
I don't.
No.
Luigi's the one in green, right?
Yeah.
Yes, good job, Dad.
Thanks.
Yeah, he's the one who's technically a different race to Mario, which is this whole thing.
They are the Mario brothers. So Mario's name is Mario, and Luigi's name is Luigi Mario for some reason.
That's upsetting.
I'm not joking. Yes, it's very upsetting.
That is upsetting.
Imagine if your name was Steven or Hackett. Can you imagine that? That would be upsetting.
I don't want to. So they're brothers, but they share a last name, but not for the reason you think they would. And they're business partners in a plumbing operation.
But they never actually do any plumbing.
But they never actually...
It's like a cover.
And these days, Luigi is most famous for being a Ghostbuster.
Yeah, or a super bad driver in Mario Kart, super aggressive guy. So
yeah.
Mm-hmm. So anyway, why would 2020 be another, as you say, year of Steven, which is this terminology that we do not officially accept, but we'll let you go with it because you seem happy about it.
Because the rumor is that the iPhone SE2 or whatever this upcoming entry-level, air quotes, low-cost iPhone could be called the iPhone 9, which is something that I put forth as a theory several months ago here on this very program. And I love it as a name. I think it's great. This is a rumor over on Mac Rumors that the iPhone SE2 will be the iPhone 8 form factor. We've talked about this, but be called the iPhone 9, which I think makes a lot of sense.
It does make a lot of sense. I still I don't understand the year of Steve. This is something you said, right, about the name?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, and it could be, I'll do this now. It could be that this is one of my yearly picks. That's coming up in a few episodes.
Oh, damn.
So maybe I'm getting ready for that.
But as precedent is set, this obviously wouldn't be Ricky because there has been previous reporting.
Not a Ricky, but it could be a regular.
You could if this article wouldn't have been published, that would have been a Ricky.
Yeah, who wrote this article? I need to have a word with them.
Well, it came from Mac Otakara, which is a Japanese website with dubious credibility.
But Joe,
via
I know
Mac
Joe.
Rumors.
Joe put it on Mac Rumors. Come on, Joe, you're killing me.
Could you not wait 2 weeks, Joe? Really? Come on, Joe.
Anyways,
Come on, Joe.
I think this phone seems like a lock that they're going to do this. It's not going to revitalize the old 4-inch iPhone form factor. So those people, if you're still holding on to an iPhone SE now, like, I'm really sorry, but I think that's time's passed it by. It's sad.
Federico, I feel like I'm losing my mind a little bit because I am very confident that you said last week that your awards would be this week at Mac Stories. Am I wrong?
No, they were never.
Maybe I just assumed this.
They were never this week. They were next week.
Oh, is this one of those things where like it's not late because we didn't announce the date?
That's right.
You're like Apple.
Yeah.
No.
Hey, he just said fall 2019. It's
Yeah.
you know.
It's just like
I just said
awards are
before the end
coming.
of the year, and it literally could be the 30th. But no, they're next week. Yeah, they're next week. So we had 2 surprises planned. One of them that we announced is that we're doing a Reader's Choice Award. And if you're a Club Mac Stories member, you can vote. There's a link in the latest issue of the newsletter. You can vote and you can write anything. And then I guess John and I will sift through the responses and try to count them. I know
I can
based on
help you with
Mike's
that.
experience that it's a whole
I have a
thing.
spreadsheet. If you hook up with me later on, and I'll give you that spreadsheet.
Okay,
You
thank
need it.
you.
Trust me, it's very difficult.
John, we need to ask Mike for the spreadsheet. All right? Can you create a reminder for that, John? He's laughing. And the second surprise, which we haven't announced yet, but it'll be revealed next week, which is going to be super awesome. They will be out. They will be announced, next week around the. I don't want to give you a day because things can happen. And there's also like my music bot thing is going also up.
That feels like vaporware.
some
You talked
point-
about that for months. Come on, ship it, man. Do it right now. Publish it live on the show.
It's funny because you do have music bots.
I do have it, and it's incredible. It's so good.
There's a lot of things in it, and in fact, and this is kind of a somewhat related to that. So something that I want to do with MusicBot is to have you can call it basic shortcut. It's really made of 800 actions. So, but yes, that's the basic version that will be available for free on the website for everyone to use. I've been working on this thing since July, really. So it was a lot of work, and that will be available for free. Everybody can use it, can download it, whatever. It's free. But there will be a MusicBot Pro for Club Mac Stories members that does even more, and that will take advantage of the Apple Music API. And initially I thought I gotta write my own API actions, and in fact I did that. The last couple of issues on Mac Stories Weekly, I explained how to work with the Apple Music API, but just today something happened that is gonna make MusicBot Pro so much better. Toolbox, the app that we talked about a few episodes ago, the Shortcuts utility, got updated today with Apple Music API actions.
Sweet.
Which means you can search the Apple Music catalog without having to generate your own developer token, which is something that I explained in the newsletter how to do. Everything is taken care of by Toolbox. You just need to drag and drop actions in a shortcut, and you can search the Apple Music catalog for artists, songs, playlists, anything you want. And because this is a native app, it takes advantage of MusicKit, which is the developer framework for Apple Music integration, to do things like adding stuff to your library or playing music in the background. So MusicBot Pro will have all of these features built in, and you don't need to set up anything on your end. Initially, the plan was to tell people, like, you can use MusicBot Pro, but first you gotta generate your own developer token, and now that limitation is gone. So if you download MusicBot Pro, just make sure that you have Toolbox installed, and you got a whole bunch of extra features for Apple Music, including playing music and adding stuff to your library, which is pretty nice, I think. So, yeah. It's been a lot of work. Oh, and also there's another MusicBot surprise that you guys have seen yesterday, I think. So, yeah, I've been up to a few things lately.
You're like Shortcut Santa over there.
Yeah, you can call me that. I like that.
I will.
Wow. Title fishing. As of this morning, it's been announced that Bridge keyboards, which I think all three of us like, they make keyboards for other devices, but we use the iPad ones. They are now available in the Apple Store, which in the 10.2, and the 10.5 sizes for the iPad and iPad Air, and they have iPad Pro sizes as well. It's a great keyboard if you use your iPad for a lot of writing and typing. It's definitely worth checking out. And I don't know, I'm happy for them. Like, this is a big deal. And, Bridge has been hard at work. I mean, updating this thing and having support for new models. And I kind of just wanted to give them a thumbs up for making it into Apple's retail chain. That seems like a big deal.
I wonder why they're not doing the Pro ones. Like, it's just the 10.2 and 10.5.
Yeah, it may be that it's
a supply thing.
Yeah. Maybe they'll add those at some point. I don't know, but it's great. And so if you have, an iPad Air, or, maybe you're giving an iPad as a gift this Christmas and someone's going to be writing on it, I think this is a better option than the Magic Keyboard if someone's really going to be a heavy keyboard user.
Yeah, I agree with that for all iPad versions, that the Bridge keyboard is a superior product.
It's great.
I'm eagerly awaiting their version with a trackpad.
Me too. Maybe that's why the Pro isn't there. Maybe they're going to... I don't know anything.
It seems like they are, from everything that's been said about that, remember from that weird lawsuit, like it feels like Bridge are going to be selling that as like a very specific product because it's not user friendly, right? Like the cursor support is not user friendly.
Yeah, it's not great.
So you kind of have to already be a expert user of this keyboard product. So maybe they're going to keep that one a little more chill.
A Pro iPad Pro user,
exactly,
if you will.
Like everybody here.
I'll have a little bit of follow-out, and it feels a little self-serving because it's to another thing that I do. But
let me do it then. So on episode 514 of the Mac Power Users podcast, David Sparks and his partner in crime, the Robin to his Batman, if you will, which is Stephen.
Wait.
Wait, do you not want to be Robin? What's wrong with Robin?
Batman's way cooler.
But David's been doing Mac Power Users for longer than you.
Yeah, but we're equals. And so it's...
Do you want to be like, what's the butler's name?
Alfred? That may be worse.
You want to be the Alfred to his Batman?
That could be worse.
Well, you decide which one of those you want to be. But there's a great episode. It's with an interview with Thomas Grove Carter, who is a video editor. And Thomas had early access for a period of time to the Mac Pro and Pro Display XDR. Like Apple, Thomas in the interview jokes that like just him and Calvin Harris had it, right? Like Apple seeds these things to creative people, I guess, for feedback, and also I would expect so they can give these people for interviews with like people like Mac Power Users. So I think it's really cool because you get to hear of somebody who's been using this product for a significant period of time talk about their experiences. And I'm like a third of the way through the episode, and it's really, really good.
Yeah, it's really part two to our interview of Doug Brooks, who's the product manager for the Mac Pro. We got that at WWDC, and we've been working on this for a while. And yeah, I was really happy with it. Thomas was awesome, really fun to talk to, and I think we're definitely going to have him back to talk more about Final Cut in particular.
Yeah, you got an expert now in the field.
Yes, it was neat to be involved in the launch in our small way, and to be a podcast with sort of early access was really, really special. And so we're really thankful we got to do it, and I'd go check it out. I mean, I'm sure everyone listening to this,
I think it's the perfect way to have this, like a podcast involved with the Mac Pro, because because it's like all of the podcasters that I know that would buy the Mac Pro are doing it because it's like I would like to own it. Where someone like Thomas can get, any kind of video producer really can get a lot of use out of that product. So being able to talk to a very heavy video user is great. As much as, of course, I would love to hear John Siracusa talk about his experiences immediately.
Sure.
I think I can at least understand from Apple's perspective why they might have wanted to go down this route, as opposed to giving you and David a Mac Pro, right? Like they actually put you in touch with someone who could talk about it at like a more professional use case.
Yeah, Thomas is really,
rather than just like, this is nice,
is really pushing it, right? He's doing amazing high-end work, and so he can really speak to what makes it different. And that was kind of the most interesting part of it for me was the things that he says he can do now that were impossible before. That's what's exciting to me about this computer.
We should talk about that computer a little later on today, I feel like. Oh, we're going to, right, with John?
Yeah, it's in here. But first, I'm going to tell you about our first sponsor, and then we have some other stuff, and then we'll get to the Mac Pro. It's coming, I promise. This episode of Connected is brought to you by Squarespace. Make your next move with Squarespace. It lets you easily create a website for your next idea, complete with a unique domain name, a selection of award-winning templates, and much more. Maybe you want to create an online store or have a portfolio or a blog, or one really neat part of Squarespace is their event calendar. So if you have events, you can set the dates and times and everything, and they roll off when they go past. Really neat section of what Squarespace can do. It's the all-in-one platform that lets you do basically anything you need, and there's nothing to install. There are no patches to worry about. You don't have to worry about upgrades because Squarespace has all that stuff covered. If you have any questions, they have award-winning 24/7 customer support. They let you quickly and easily grab a unique domain name, and all of those award-winning templates are beautifully designed for you to show off your great ideas. I've used Squarespace for a bunch of different projects, and it is always my go-to because if I'm working with somebody else, it means that I can hand it off to them and they can deal with the content and keeping it up to date because Squarespace makes that really easy. A lot of platforms make content editing sort of stressful, or you're worried you're going to break something. Squarespace, it's really easy. It's all point and click. You can do what you need to do and move on with your day. Squarespace plans start at just $12 a month, but you can start a trial with no credit card required by going to squarespace.com/connected. When you decide to sign up, use the offer code CONNECTED to get 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain and to show your support for the show. Once again, that's squarespace.com/connected and the code CONNECTED to get 10% off your first purchase. We thank Squarespace for the support of this show and all of Relay FM. Squarespace. Make your next move. Make your next website. It is the week of software updates. I know it's unusual to have a software update for iOS 13, but Apple's finally pushed one, so that's exciting. There's a lot of stuff here. Federico, what is new in 13.3 for iOS and the iPad?
Yeah, not a lot, but there's a few things that we could call out. If you didn't like the inclusion of Memoji in the emoji keyboard, you can now remove them.
Woo!
I'm conflicted on this.
You are?
I'm conflicted on this. Yeah, let me tell you why.
Okay.
Every now and then, I like to use them, but I would forget they existed if I didn't see them.
Right.
Right?
They have been surprisingly frequent in text messages from my friends.
I see them a lot too.
Even in WhatsApp, where they're
Yep.
not stickers, they're just images, but people use them.
I sometimes send them in Slack instead of an emoji. It's just this
yeah?
massive image.
Nice. Yeah. So obviously, the kind of audience that reads Mac stories and listens to this show, probably doesn't like them in the emoji keyboard. And I get it. Like, they're not emoji technically. And nobody asked you for those, Apple. We just want to see them emoji in iMessage. And I get it. So there's now a setting. If you go in settings keyboard, you can now disable Memoji, and the emoji keyboard will go back to just showing you emoji. Communication limits in screen time, which I really haven't played around with because I don't care about screen time anymore. There was a time last year when I was really using screen time to check on my habits and whatnot. But then I realized that most of my problems were Facebook and Twitter. And so what I'm doing now is I don't have Facebook anymore on my phone, and I have the official Twitter app, which has basically kicked my timeline completionist habit. I'm not obsessed with reading every tweet anymore, so I really don't need screen time. But you have now more options for setting up limits for communication apps like messages. That's all I have to say. I really don't know how it works. I really don't want to go through the process.
Well, one of the things that's also pretty good, I mean, this stuff can be good for family, parental control stuff, because you can limit who can get through and who can't. But also, if you're using it yourself and you're using downtime, you can now say, I want to get messages from this person, and then they can break through, which I think is pretty useful. I think Gray will like it.
Yeah, it seems like a good feature, and I'm just excited that they're doing things with screen time and not waiting until iOS 14. That they're continuing to improve it, because it is a big deal. Like I've got, my kids have an iPad and I have the parental stuff set up on it and the screen time stuff, and it's a little clunky in places. And they don't have an iMessage account or anything yet, so I haven't come across that. But it is exciting that they are continuing to improve it because it's
well,
really useful.
I mean, these were announced 13 features that got pushed.
Oh, well, I resend all that stuff.
This isn't new.
Okay.
This was like a thing that was spoken about, and it kept getting pushed.
If only somebody wrote a really in-depth iOS 13 review I could have read. I would have known about this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know. Security keys in Safari. So if you have a physical security key for authentication purposes on websites that support it. And these are the FIDO2 compliant, because nobody trusts FIDO1. So it's all about FIDO2 these days.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, what are you, a fool?
Yeah, right. I mean, if you're using FIDO1, get out of here.
Come on.
Nobody can trust you.
That's not a compliant
FIDO2
model of security. We all know this.
FIDO2 compliant NFC, USB, and Lightning keys. There is this great introduction to physical security keys by Paul Stamatiu on their blog. Really, really great article. I had no idea that these things.
Can you imagine how few people have a Lightning security key? I bet it's like one person on the planet.
So there's this company called Yubico that they make authentication keys, and they recently came out with the Lightning version. And I've seen some blog posts about that when I did my research about security keys. But yeah, it's a whole world, right? Of like, this is like an entirely different authentication framework. It's like a web standard. It's supported by Apple, by Google.
Does it work within apps as well as websites? Do you know?
It works with Safari. So if an app uses Safari View Controller, for example, for authentication, it should work.
Right.
But I don't think it's like a proper like iOS API that developers can implement in their own UIs, if that makes sense. I think it's just Safari for now. And
you got to assume that there's like a Salesforce or an IBM or whatever said to Apple, like, we really need you to do this if you want us to continue with the iPad rollout or whatever.
If you use Safari and if you use websites that support this different authentication system, you can now plug a USB or Lightning key into your device or use an NFC enabled one, and the system will log you in. But this is like I was fascinated by this a few weeks ago, and I considered maybe I should try it out just to see what it's like. But then I read about what's required if you just want to, for example, switch your Google account to use a physical security key. Like, what happens if you change your mind and you gotta like call Google, and it's like
this feels like a one-time decision, really.
So like, if you are the type of, but this is the thing, if you're the type of person who maybe because of your profession, maybe because of other political reasons, if you need this kind of more secure type of authentication, I think it's great news that Safari on iOS and iPadOS supports this. So it's very, very nice to see this feature. I'm probably never going to use it, but I think it's pretty cool. And so yeah, that's it. I should file an official complaint here on the show.
Yep.
About Yes. So we're going to talk about shortcuts later on a more positive note because of an anniversary that occurs today. But before we talk about the nice things, I want to talk about the bad things. Specifically, iOS and iPadOS 13.3 have been, because I've been testing the beta, by far the buggiest and most problematic release of shortcuts for me in a while. I'm running into all kinds of issues, whether it's about a complex shortcut such as MusicBot. Myke literally just sent me a screenshot of an error message that he got. And we should say Myke is the person who always runs into issues with my shortcuts for some reason. Like,
this is very true. And I haven't done anything, all right? Everyone's like, Myke's so stupid. He puts his mute button on.
He hasn't done anything. He followed my instructions to the letter.
I did.
There's an initial setup process for MusicBot. It's the native option called by Apple import questions. It's a shortcuts feature. You follow those instructions and he got this error that says nothing. It says the file, quote unquote, shortcuts couldn't be opened. Now,
What?
my shortcut, yes, the file. So
I'm in shortcuts while they see this error. Yeah.
he's in shortcuts. He taps on the MusicBot shortcut and he gets this message that says the file, quotes, shortcuts couldn't be opened. Now, my shortcut isn't called shortcuts. There is no file called shortcuts required by MusicBot. I have no idea what this error message means. This shortcut was created on 13.3 and Myke is trying to run it on 13.2. So there's a chance that that's an issue, but it shouldn't be. But even more than that, I've been running into all kinds of problems on 13.3 with shortcuts. Every time I share a shortcut, I have to recreate all my import questions because they get reset every time I share a shortcut. So what I've done is I created an Apple Note with the text of my import questions because I'm tired of writing them up from scratch every single time. Sometimes I add a variable to a shortcut and you know how you can tap on a variable and you can change its type or its property? Like if you have a variable and you tap on it, you can say, I want to use this as an image or I want to use this as a text. Sometimes I tap on it and the variable disappears. Like it from the field, it just disappears. I have shortcuts that take Apple Music links and run a very simple regular expression on it from the share sheet to extract a portion of the link. Those are not working anymore when I run them inside the share sheet. MusicBot presents a list of options when you share a song or an album from Apple Music to the shortcut. And these options are like 5 options that say, do you want to save this as a favorite or, stuff like that. 5 options, not a lot. In 13.3 final stable version that came out yesterday, as soon as the list comes up, the shortcut crashes. And there's all kinds of issues like this. And I basically spent the past 2 weeks working around all these bugs from Apple, which I have filed. I'll let you know I have filed in all the possible ways at my disposal through Apple, feedback reporter, whatever, feedback assistant, and other avenues. I have done my job, but these bugs do not get fixed. And it's like, Apple, you're making it really difficult for me to write about shortcuts and share shortcuts and, maybe push shortcuts to its limits. But the thing is, I'm not doing anything that is too crazy. I'm just using, MusicBot is all Apple-made actions. No third-party dependencies, no crazy base 64, nothing. Just plain actions. And and I keep running into issues and it's getting worse. Like, I feel like it used to be better in the 13.0 beta this summer, and it's gotten worse through the multiple releases of iOS 13, which is sort of counter to what Apple is doing with these updates. So I don't get it. I don't know what is going on.
I have some good news. It's tvOS news. The top shelf option can now be changed. So this means you can now change with the Apple TV app. You're now able to, in the Apple TV, you're able to change the method. So the up next queue is just a list of like things that you can scroll through, as opposed like the old style, as opposed to the auto playing video. To do this, if you want to do this, I did this, it's great. Go to settings, then apps, then TV, and then you can change the top shelf option. So you can get the old Apple TV look back rather than the auto playing video, which I just want to say about this. I do not like creepy or scary things. Like, I don't like creepy and scary TV shows or movies.
Yeah, me neither.
Apple currently has one, which is called Servant of M. Night Shyamalan. I really don't want to see the trailer. I just don't want to see it. It creeps me out. So just another reason to turn it off. I don't want to see auto-playing video whenever I've got my Apple TV on, and now I don't have to. macOS Catalina, the iTunes column browser, has reappeared in the music app.
Oh my God, really?
Yeah.
Okay, let's do this live. What is the column browser? How do I find it in music?
Can't tell you that. Don't know. I don't run Catalina.
What do I do here?
It's a way to view your artists and albums and music and all that kind of stuff. Jason Snell uses it. Marco uses it, I think. It's just like a more old school version where I think you get like a bunch of segmented views where you can choose artist and album. And it kind of like the column browser you find in Finder. It's kind of like that. I don't know how you get it, but it's in Music app now.
It's impossible to find.
I can't help you. So iOS 13 features that we don't currently have. Shared iCloud Drive folders, right? So like, as far as I'm aware, that's the only thing left. I can't think of anything else from 13 that they said they would ship that they haven't shipped except this. And I was kind of scrolling through Apple's iOS 13 website today, and that seemed to be the case.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Or at least that's the only major thing left.
Well, it's slightly it's another files feature. The ability to pin files.
I think it's anything related to what is clearly an underpinnings change of files has not happened. I wonder if it will.
Maybe. Who knows?
Saga of iOS 13
They said in the spring, right? Are they saying next year or in the spring?
When I was on the iOS 13 website today, it said autumn.
Still.
So that's by the end of the year, I guess. If they're sticking to that. All right, should we change over our co-host and talk about the Mac Pro?
Yes, hold on. Let me do the official passing of the torch. In this case, it's not a torch, it's headphones. Bye, guys. I'll talk to you in a bit. Bye-bye.
This episode of Connected is brought to you by ExpressVPN. We all know how VPN can protect privacy and add security online, but it can also take our media watching to the next level by unlocking movies and shows that are only available in other countries. That means you can use ExpressVPN to binge things on Netflix in the UK or in the US or in Japan, anywhere around the planet, because ExpressVPN's app lets you change your location very easily. Then you just refresh Netflix or whatever you're watching, and that's it. ExpressVPN hides your IP address, so you can control where you want sites to think you're located. You can choose from almost 100 different countries. Just think about all the streaming libraries you can get through. It's not just Netflix. ExpressVPN works with a bunch of streaming services, Hulu, BBC iPlayer, YouTube, whatever you want. There are hundreds of VPNs out there. You can even roll your own, but ExpressVPN is super fast, which is what you want when you're streaming media. And it's compatible with all of your devices, phones, media consoles, smart TVs, and more, so you can watch what you want wherever you want. I've had ExpressVPN on all of my devices for a long time now, and they're not joking about the speed. It is really great to see how basically your connection to the internet, it doesn't feel any different if you're on ExpressVPN or you're not. It's really quick. So if you go to this link, expressvpn.com/connected, you'll get 3 extra months free with their 1-year package. So support the show, watch what you want, and protect yourself at expressvpn.com/connected. Our thanks to ExpressVPN for their support of the show and all of Relay FM. It's Mac Pro Week, gentlemen.
Finally.
We have some links in the show notes to some stuff. We're sort of assuming that a lot of people have seen a lot of stuff. There were 3 YouTube videos that are worth watching. MKBHD, iJustine, and Jonathan Morrison all unboxed and set up Mac Pros on their channels. I think all 3 are going to work on a more in-depth review. But even the packaging of this machine is bananas. Like, the box is enormous. It's like held together with Velcro. And has its handles.
Yeah.
It's cool. It's very cool.
Yeah, that box is really something. It seems like it's made out of a material that's different than some of the other packaging for some of the other Macs too, from what I could tell in those videos.
It should be more premium. That's for sure.
I suppose so.
Well, maybe it's more recyclable.
Maybe. It sounds like it's really smooth, kind of a weird soft texture or something, almost like a plastic is what it sounded like. I don't know.
Huh. Okay. I wouldn't be surprised if like they had to change something because one, maybe needed it to be stronger, and
Right.
2, because they were doing that Velcro thing, right? Like there might have been like different rigidity things that you needed to consider. Plus, it's a very, very, very heavy computer.
Yeah.
That was definitely obvious from the videos that it was people struggled to pick those things up and get them out of the boxes.
Yeah.
I have a question while we're talking about like reviews and stuff like that. Why do you think Apple gave every reviewer 2 Pro displays?
Because
So the 3 reviewers, Justine, MKBHD, and Jonathan Morrison, they all got 2 Pro displays. I mean, maybe they got one matte and one smooth, right? So they could see the difference between them. But like, that is, how many people are gonna not need? How many people are actually going to have 2 of these displays? It seems wild.
It's a lot. Thomas had 2 of them as well, and I don't know if the difference or different finishes. I'm not sure, but I mean, you can see like Apple's really pushing that this is a computer designed for video editors, and those people do want like a full size preview, and I think it fits with their narrative. I don't think it means that Apple assumes people are going to buy 2 of these displays with it, but I'm not sure Apple assumes that you're going to buy 1 display with it.
You can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the demos, like at WWDC, a lot of them had 2, right? As well, was that right?
Some of them did, and others were hooked up to like 1, and then like a 4K television on the wall. There were several different scenarios, but I think too, Apple. I mean, they also sent those 3 YouTubers the 28 core machine. Thomas had the 16 core, I think, but they were flexing a little bit, because they want to show off the highest end, configurations where possible. So I think it makes sense with the picture Apple's trying to paint, but I don't know if that has any like real indication of how people will use it.
Is the 28 core the maximum core amount?
Let's see. I have the page open. Let's find out.
I don't like the update to the Apple Store app, by the way.
Yeah, it's a little rough in places.
Everything is way more difficult to find.
Yeah, I found the same thing.
Yes, the 28 core, it's a $7,000 option in the United States. But
wow.
that's the most cores.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things they did was they showed in Justine's video, she showed off using the 2 displays where one had all the multicam views in one place, and then the second display was used to show the actual footage that she was creating. So, I mean, that's a use case for it, but you're right. I mean, that's an awfully expensive use case.
But I also wonder if, this monitor is so much bigger than monitors people are currently using, right? So, maybe we could just do this with multiple windows. Because what is it, 32 inches?
32 inches.
Which is bigger than most of the monitors that you would buy for a machine like this currently, right?
Yeah, 27 is sort of the sweet spot, I think, for a lot of people. But, I mean, it's I think it's flex more than anything. But it was fun to watch that, and fun to, it's fun to watch people set stuff up and talk about it.
Yep.
And all 3 of them shared some early benchmarks. Thomas shared some details on NPU about just how much faster it is at certain tasks. And if you're in Final Cut in particular and you're using ProRes, then it is shockingly faster, like in a way that doesn't really make sense. And
that's because of that card, right? The Afterburner card?
Yes. Yeah, because the Xeons don't have so the Core i5, i7, i9 have a component to speed up some video processing, and the Xeons don't. So actually under some I edit in ProRes and Final Cut, and under certain circumstances, my MacBook Pro can actually export faster than my iMac Pro because of this difference in the Core i9 and the Xeons. But the Afterburner basically blows all that out of the water, and it's just basically, it's an ASIC. It's basically just a bunch of gates set up to make particular tasks as fast as possible. And so I think I said this last week. It would be interesting to see if Apple applied that to other things. Like, what would an Afterburner for something like Logic look like, where you could do more and more tracks? What would it look like for other types of jobs? And so some video codecs, some things won't be taking advantage of Afterburner, but if you are working in that type of codec, then it just destroys everything else on the planet, it seems like, which is cool. Because there are PCs that are faster than this or as fast as this, and you can run Premiere on them, but the Afterburner is really what sets it apart, at least for now. And I would guess that other manufacturers may end up doing similar things to this. Red actually, I'm going to put it in present tense, but it may be past tense. I'm not sure. Red has some PCI cards that you can use to import and digest some of their video stuff on the PC side. But I don't know how widespread that is, and maybe this will be a way that people on the PC or using other codecs could benefit from kind of what Apple's doing as well.
But it seems that even if you're not using ProRes, right, because MKBHD does not use ProRes, and his like export or rendering speeds, his rendering speeds are just so much faster.
Yeah,
it's like 12 minutes on the Mac Pro and 4.5 minutes on the Mac Pro, the iMac Pro to the Mac Pro.
Yeah, I think that's the core count coming into play, and the amount of RAM probably. But no doubt it's faster. It just, under certain circumstances, it's bananas faster.
Mm-hmm.
There are some accessories. The big thing with the Mac Pro is that you can open it, you can really customize it to what you want and what you need. And some of those have popped up in the last day or so. The Pro Display XDR does not have an iSight camera in it. I saw people complaining about this, and I actually think that that's for good reason. I think if this is a display for people working in high-end production, you don't necessarily want those devices to have cameras on them. It keeps the bezel thin and all that other stuff. But Logitech does have a new 4K webcam. It sticks with a magnet to the top of the XDR, kind of like the iSight camera used to do. And it can be driven by both the 16-inch MacBook Pro or the new Mac Pro. So if you have a Pro Display XDR for some reason and you need a webcam, there's an option from Logitech. And I have the Logitech, the 1080 camera that a bunch of people have. And if I'm on a video thing, I even use it with my iMac Pro because it looks better than the 1080 webcam built into the computer. So Logitech builds good stuff in this arena, and I'd imagine that camera looks pretty good. There are also a couple of RAID options from Promise. One is a 2-disc array that sits at the very top of the Mac Pro.
They promised, oh God, I can't believe I said that. I really didn't mean it. They said that these were going to be a thing, right? Like Apple said that there would be RAID stuff from Promise.
Yeah. And it's they shipped it. It's for sale now. So So there's a 2-bay and then a 4-bay that takes one of the MPX slots. They ship with spinning hard drives, 3.5-inch drives, but I would hope that you could adapt that to 2.5-inch SSDs. But spinning hard drives are still way more affordable for RAID scenarios, and in that sort of setup, you just want capacity. So it's those are there. That is something that I am potentially excited about because I think a lot of people have big storage needs, and to bring that internally is nice. You can also order RAM, additional or upgraded GPUs, and then the Afterburner card in kits. Is something Apple's been talking about. The Afterburner, by the way, is $2,000. I had no idea what to expect that cost to be. So, I don't know if $2,000 is good or not, but that's what it is. So you can upgrade these as we talked about. So it's good stuff.
Yeah, it's expensive, but the graphics cards are expensive too. I mean, I think it's in line with those at least. If you look at some of those, they're like $2,800 for the Radeon Pro Vega. So.
But again, that's is that expensive in the wider market? We're comparing Apple to Apple in that, right? This is what Apple's charging for this stuff. Whether it ends up being those prices on the wider market is a different thing. Because am I right? The Radeon Vega stuff is branded. These are cards that are used elsewhere, but they brand them differently when they work with Apple.
Yeah,
is that right?
They're branded differently, and the big MPX cards are 2 GPUs connected with Infinity Link, which again you can do elsewhere. Those are kind of standard AMD things, but they're tweaked a little bit. And then the MPX module is also using Thunderbolt 3 internally for additional power, and it passes through Thunderbolt to the back. So depending on the GPU you have, the numbers change, but you have HDMI, and then you have Thunderbolt 3, additional Thunderbolt 3 ports on the video card that you can use for data or additional video out. So they're using Thunderbolt 3 internally in addition to PCI to power these things and provide more bandwidth. So you can go out and buy a regular video card and slap it in there. There's a header in there for power, but if you do go Apple's route, you get some a nicer package and something that will take fuller advantage of what the Mac Pro can do.
Were you surprised that they didn't have any additional I/O cards or expansions that Apple were making?
I was. So the Mac Pro ships with a half-length, they're calling it the Apple I/O card, and that has USB-A and Thunderbolt 3 on the back. And that comes with the Mac Pro. I expected that you could just buy one of those outright. Unless I missed it this morning, you can't. So if you need more USB-A, you're going to have to break out somewhere. Or if you wanted, just more Thunderbolt ports but don't need another GPU, you're kind of stuck. And so my guess is that someone, OWC or somebody will ship a card that just gives you a bunch of ports on the back, right? Because PCI can just hand out to a bunch of different ports and you'll be fine. So I was hoping to see that because I think people who just use it sort of without a bunch of GPUs in it may need additional I/O, and Apple doesn't have a great solution for that currently. There are some sort of what I'm calling weird details, just things that jumped out at me. The first one is that the rack-mounted Mac Pro starts at $500 more and is, quote, coming soon. So it does come in a rack-mounted, put it in a server farm if you're, if you're the guys at Mac Stadium. It's a viable option and way better than having a bunch of iMac Pros in a rack like they do now. So we don't know much about that machine. My assumption is that the specs are all basically the same and it's just a form factor difference and you're paying for that. But that's kind of unknown. And Apple hasn't given a date of when that might show up. The Mac Pro is a pretty niche thing, but the rack-mounted one is going to be extremely specific. I don't know how many of those they're going to sell, but if you need it, it's coming soon.
Along with other options, the 8TB SSD and some of the graphics card options, they're just coming soon too, right? No date.
Right. So the 8TB SSD first showed up on the 16-inch MacBook Pro. Apple had previously said the 4TB will be the max for the Mac Pro, but they're going to have an 8TB option. So again, we don't know when that is, but it is coming, and it's odd to me that they couldn't get at least that going before launch, but who knows? But yeah, additional Radeon Pro, the W5700X, will ship soon if you need that. We should talk about the price because that's a thing with this machine.
Many headlines, but it's fun.
It's a big thing.
You know, I don't know about you, but as soon as I saw that it was available, the first thing that I did was spec up one to the maximum. I think everybody did that, right? Like that's what everybody used to do with the old Mac Pro, like the cheese grater Mac Pro. Like how expensive can you make it go? And you can pass $50,000 with this.
That's amazing.
And this isn't the highest price though, right? Because I'm assuming that once the SSD options are available and the other graphics, you might be able to make it even more expensive.
They're not going to reduce the current SSD pricing when the 8TB's an option, right? They'll just add it to the top.
Right.
Yeah, it's fun. That's a fun game to play. And if you need 1.5 terabytes of RAM, that's basically half the cost, isn't it? 1.5 terabytes is really expensive.
It's 25. Yeah, it's 25 grand.
That's wild. Apple is giving people options, right? And it's, if you're the type of person who needs 1.5 terabytes of RAM, now you have a solution that runs macOS.
Yeah, I think it's great. Like, isn't this what everyone wanted, right? Like, I know that it makes it very expensive, but wasn't the whole purpose for this machine existing so people that have particular needs can now have them fulfilled? Like, if you need 1.5 terabytes of RAM, Apple now give you the ability to have that. You could not do that before yesterday. Like, you were out of luck. If you needed, for some reason, 1.5 terabytes of RAM in a computer, you could not use macOS to do it unless you were going to go with some like horrific Hackintosh thing, right? But like, this is what was asked for. So this is what it is now, right? Like, you don't have to spend 22 grand to put 1.5 terabytes of RAM in there. Like, you know, like I know there's like a lot of question about like want and need, but like, I don't even, how, why?
I mean, the RAM specifically, I think, is for people who are doing like big data modeling or like scientific computation. A lot of that can be handed off to memory and is way faster.
It is incredibly niche, and I think it's great that
Very.
even for these incredibly niche use cases, you can now buy a computer from Apple that you can put this hardware into. Like, this is what the Mac Pro in 2020 should be, I think.
I think you're right, Myke. I mean, it's absolutely something that it's exactly what we were told we were going to get in June. The thing I think is that shocks people still, though, is that that base model is like buying an iMac Pro, right? I mean, I know that when I was trying to guess what the highest price would be, I thought it might be like 25 grand, something like
me
that.
too. Me too.
So, right? So we were talking about that in iMessage, and yeah, I thought it was going to be half of what it is, and so it is kind of shocking, but I'm not upset about that in any way, because I agree there are use cases. They're very, very narrow use cases, but now people have a machine that they can configure to be the most powerful Mac on the planet to do whatever they want. And I think it's great that it exists.
Yeah, there's been some hand-wringing, as you would imagine, and I think this is as good a time as ever to talk about that. If you look back, and I wrote a piece about this years ago, I will try to dig it up for the show notes, about the starting price of the old Mac Pro, the cheese grater, not the 2013, and
Right.
you could get an entry-level Mac Pro in not a great configuration, but one that started less, and $2,500-$3,500, and obviously you can't do that. Oh, this is why I couldn't find it. I didn't write it. Ed Cormany did as a guest post, but thank you, Ed. It's an expensive machine, and it's a little bit of a bummer that there's not a sort of hobbyist price point entry-level model. I think the specs on the entry-level model show that Apple just couldn't do that, at least with this hardware, because the base Mac Pro is $1,000 more than the base iMac Pro, and not as good, right? A quarter of the storage space, and a GPU that, at least under some circumstances, isn't as good, and no display. And that's a bummer. I really was hoping before we knew the price that when this machine was theoretical, that there would be an entry-level machine that a hobbyist could buy, or someone who just wants a tower, and they could build up on their own over time. And you can do that with this, but the price of entry is really high. And that's a bummer. Like I myself am sad about that, because I'm interested in this machine. And if I want to buy it, then I have to spend a lot of money out of the gate, where I would prefer to spend half that money out of the gate and then build it up over time. I just can't do that. However, John, I think your point is well made, that this is a machine, yes, while the price is higher than we expected, it means that it can solve all sorts of problems for people that Apple just couldn't address previously, and just couldn't do it. And
right,
that's fine, but it does mean that what the Mac Pro is and how people define the Mac Pro is different than it was 10 years ago. And I think the sooner that we all accept that, the better, right? Jason wrote this really interesting thing about want versus need, and how if you just want it, that's fine, but most people don't actually need it. And I feel like that article has been used as a weapon on every side. And even Jason and I have argued about it. But I think that understanding this machine is really specific. And if you just need a fast Mac, you can spend a lot less money and get, in some cases, a better computer. That's just where we are, right? It's just different than it used to be. And while that's a bummer, I think it's time to sort of realize that this computer is what it is. And if it's for you, that's great. And if it's not, the iMac Pro or even the high-end 5K iMac is a really good computer. The iMac Pro I'm sitting in front of is the best computer I've ever owned. It should not be overlooked.
Right. I find this to be a really cool computer that I think is really interesting to talk about, but I have no desire to buy it myself. When I was working on the story for Mac Stories about it, I spec'd it up and put it into the shopping cart, and I've never been so nervous that I might accidentally click buy and spend, have to then explain to my wife that I just spent $7,000 or God forbid, $50,000 on a computer that I had to somehow return. But yeah, it's cool. I enjoy seeing what it's capable of, and I'm really looking forward to more in-depth hands-on. We got a little bit of a taste of that from some of the things like Mac Powers users with the interview and the videos that came out, but I really want to see what the full capabilities of these different configurations really are.
Yeah, and with the third-party stuff, I mean, no two Mac Pros will be identical, right? You can really do, and
right.
that is, Stephen John Smith was tweeting about this earlier, that is the case for a tower, that you can have exactly what you need. The complaint is you have to buy way more than you need to get the flexibility, and that's something that Apple just chose not to address with the system, and they clearly think that if you need power but are on less of a budget, then there's other options. And that's not to say the iMac Pro is cheap, because it's not. But they've decided to solve this in this way. And because Apple's the only company that makes hardware that supports Mac OS officially, then we have to make the decisions within that matrix. Whether we agree with the matrix or not, that's kind of how it is. And I found the arguments about it sort of exhausting because, like, what are you going to do? Like, if you want to run Mac OS, and, people say that all the time, like, well, you can build this PC, you can have this laptop that cools better. Well, if you want to run Mac OS, and I do, that limits your options. And it puts you in a arena that Apple fully controls. And for better or for worse, that's how it is.
Stephen, you mentioned the wheels, and there's another tidbit about the wheels that I thought was really interesting, which is if you order the wheels, it's going to take an extra month for you to get your computer, which I thought was kind of humorous. Obviously, they didn't have the wheels quite ready yet, I guess, for shipment right away.
That slipped. Initially, it was basically the same date. So the wheels are $400. They cannot be added later. I had this funny idea of I was just going to buy the wheels and review them on YouTube, but you can't do that. It seems like the frames.
Put them on a skateboard or something.
I was gonna build a thing and then put my cheese grater on it, but
that would have been good.
Or the trash can, but the video will never happen. My assumption is that the wheels or the feet are actually different frames because Apple says if you need wheels later, you can go to an Apple store and get it done. And I would assume that it's way more than $400 at that point, and they're going to replace the frame, basically build your computer on a new frame. I don't know that. I think iFixit will tear it apart and tell us if they're actually removable. But my guess is they're actually two different frames, and that's so you got to make the wheel decision at the beginning. And as I noted yesterday, if you want wheels now, it's delayed quite a bit. So
yeah, if the way even Apple describes it on the website makes it seem like that it's an entirely different case. Right, because they describe it as do you want the case or do you want the case with the wheels?
Right.
And it's it feels like it's a different thing.
Yeah. I think that stainless steel space frame or whatever is two different parts. So yeah, you can't add wheels later, which is a bummer. But
I've been thinking about it, and I really don't know why you wouldn't get wheels. If it's going on the floor.
Yeah.
If you're somebody buying this computer and it's going on the floor, I feel like wheels are a good idea. If you're putting it on a table or a desk, then don't get wheels, obviously, unless they lock. But
look, I've seen this thing. It's enormous. Do not put it on your desk. Put it on the
floor. Because I was thinking, right, it's big and heavy. If you had to get behind it, it's going to be a real thing to get it out there. But if you had the wheels, you can just pull it out.
Yep. Yeah.
I think it makes a lot of sense to put wheels on it.
It's a real question. I think the wheels being backdated is a sign that maybe people really do want them. Or maybe they only made 6 of them, right? Assuming they made the same number, that people who are buying these want them. I think there is a real pent-up demand for this machine. If you look at the ship dates, they are sliding. People who have been holding on to old cheese graters or using the trash can or using the iMac Pro who really need this, I think they're really excited. And I think those people overlap heavily with people who really will use the wheels because they are using these on set or in flexible offices that you're going to go to one editing bay than the other, and the wheels make that way easier. Moving on a little bit, the base Mac Pro CPU uses slower RAM than the others, and the 1.5 terabyte option is only available on the 24 or 28 core CPU. So the CPU parts are slightly different from Intel. So something to be aware of. The Apple Store won't let you make a mistake there. I tried. It's you have this CPU, so you're limited to this or that. So, but if you're upgrading later, of course, make sure that the RAM you buy is the RAM that matches with your CPU. There is a PCI utility that ships with the Mac Pro. The icon of that leaked a while ago. But the About This Mac window has been updated on this machine to show the RAM slots and the PCI slots, and it gives you directions for add-ons. These are 3-channel systems, and so you can't just slap RAM in any slot you want because it looks good. You have to put them in specific slots, and as you add RAM, you have to do it in a specific order, and the Mac will help you through all that. So it will show you what to do, which is good. And if you get it wrong, it will still boot, and it will just give you an error when you log in saying that there's a memory configuration issue, and it will prompt you to fix it. So it seems pretty idiot-proof to upgrade these, which is nice because that wasn't always true before. I've got both a G5 and a Mac Pro. You saw them in my video last week or earlier this week, and it was a little confusing. There's markings on the case of where to add the RAM, but you could totally overlook that. And then those systems would just beep at you if you got it wrong and not boot, and then you have to figure out what happened, which is not a good user experience, right? You open your computer and then the next time you power it on, it just beeps and won't come on. That's scary. So they seem like they're handling it better now. Lastly, the Pro Display XDR. There was a dust up about this yesterday about what computers can drive it. The Mac Pro, of course, can drive it. The 15-inch 2018 or later can drive it. The 16-inch MacBook Pro can drive it. And then the 2019 iMacs can drive it. Or any Mac with a Thunderbolt 3 port using a Blackmagic or Blackmagic Pro eGPU. There is one computer that is suspiciously absent from that list, and it's the iMac Pro. And best I can tell, there are two reasons for this. One, the iMac Pro came out in 2017. It has Thunderbolt 3, but it uses an older Thunderbolt 3 controller. All these other systems use the Titan Ridge Thunderbolt 3 controller. And that's stupid that Intel and Apple didn't change the name. But effectively what it means is the iMac Pro doesn't have either the bandwidth or the video output to drive this display at 6K. And so you could do it with an eGPU, but as it stands today, the iMac Pro can't drive it. There's also a question about the GPUs. The GPUs in all the other systems end in an X, and maybe that's some sort of mark that they're upgraded somehow. But again, the iMac Pro is 2 years old, so its GPU apparently is not supported. This makes me sort of hit start on the countdown to an iMac Pro update because it's been 2 years, but it seems like this is a pairing that would be popular. And I was honestly a little surprised because I had thought about this before that, the iMac Pro, it's 2 years old, will it be able to drive it? I was a little surprised we didn't see an iMac Pro update with this, and maybe it's coming soon. And I don't think Intel has parts ready yet, but there are GPUs that will support it. Now, I don't know if Apple can continue to ship the same Xeon parts and upgrade the Thunderbolt 3 controller. I could not find anything useful about that because Intel's website is a disaster. But I feel like the iMac Pro is now an update watch for me, and hopefully it is not a one-off because I still think that's possible. Hopefully it's not. But if you have an iMac Pro and you wanted a Pro Display XDR, you're out of luck.
Do you think there were a lot of people that wanted to do that?
I mean, thinking about like Thomas's work environment where they have a bunch of iMac Pros, and you want to drop some of these into editing bays, you can't do it. So, I mean, not many people, but it's the exact people who would be buying this computer. So,
or at least you can't do it easily. You need to have the GPU in the middle otherwise.
Right. Which is like its whole other can of worms. So we will see if that iMac Pro update shows up. I hope it does because I think it's a great computer.
Yeah, the other computer that's not on here is the iPad Pro. I know that we had heard rumblings that maybe that was going to be a thing, but apparently not.
Or at least hoped.
Exactly.
Yeah. Just for funds, because it would be hilarious to just go into the Apple Store and plug one in.
Yes.
Yeah, the Pro Display XDR is a Thunderbolt display. It's using DisplayPort over Thunderbolt. It's not USB-C. And then the chat room's asking, if you plug in a different machine, will it run at lower resolution? I do not know that. I've asked and I've not gotten an answer. So maybe that will be known by the time this goes up or in the next few days. But I think if you're buying a Pro Display XDR, the point is to run it at 6K and not to run it at a lower resolution. So I don't know if anyone would want to do that, even if it's possible. My guess is that it won't work, or that Apple basically blocks it in software because they want you to run it at 6K, but I don't know.
I find it so funny that the 21.5-inch iMac can support it, but the iMac Pro can't. I know the internals, but like there is just something funny about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not great. And I'm sure some people are frustrated by that, but it's that's where things are right now.
I have a question about it says like the Mac Pro with the MPX model GPUs. Is it possible to have a Mac Pro that doesn't have those?
Well, the base model Mac Pro just comes with a regular video card. Now, whether they consider that an NPU module, I don't know. So let's go.
Because then, like, do you also have to, like, not every Mac Pro will work with the Pro Display XDR. Like, you have to meet a minimum GPU requirement, which is not the minimum GPU that the Mac Pro
I see what you're saying.
ships with.
Let me see.
While you're saying that, I'll just say there is also an article. It's like one of those things. It seems like a fun headline. So a lot of people write about it, but I think it makes perfect sense. If you get the nano texture one, so the one where Apple have done that, like the matte one where they've done the weird like glass laser texturing, you can only clean it with a cloth that Apple give you, which is like a specific cloth that they've made. I think that makes perfect sense. Like you shouldn't touch that display. You shouldn't do anything to that display. It's like an incredibly high-end thing. I would only ever want to clean it with a cleaning cloth that came with it, right? Like, I can't imagine spending £7,000
Right.
on a thing and then just getting like some kitchen towel and rubbing on it, right? Like,
Right.
Yeah.
like, geez, let me have the cleaning cloth and I'll keep it in a tiny little box next to the computer, right? Like, it's like I only clean my glasses with glasses cleaners for the same
Right.
reason.
Sure.
You know?
My guess is, I wrote this in my link to it, is that the nano texture would like pull off bits of like regular cleaning cloths, and then you have fuzz all like embedded in your display, which would be bad.
That would be great.
That would be bad.
Well, Winter Charm in the chat, which also makes sense to me, is like if you use something too rough, it could smooth out the nano texture.
Maybe
It's like it's one way or the other, but like just don't touch it.
fuzzy and blurry. I have an answer about the base GPU in the Mac Pro is the AMD Radeon Pro 580X. Here's what Apple says about it. That it can drive 6 4K displays, 2 5K displays, or 2 Pro Display XDRs. So the base Mac Pro can drive 2 of them. So I think when Apple says with an MPX module, maybe they were just having fine print around. If you put a third-party GPU in this,
I think that's what it is. It's not going to
it's
work.
not going to work. So
Because I figure technically that is possible, right? Like technically you can do that. Yeah.
yeah, they call the 580X a half-height MPX module. So maybe it has to do with that Thunderbolt port being used, and if it's not in use in a regular GPU, it won't work. So that's a good question. I'm glad you asked it, because that would have had been a follow-up.
So what is your ideal configuration then? Come on. What if you were today, if somebody put the money in your hand and said, here you go, you can buy one, what would it look like?
I would buy...
Realistically.
I would only change 2 things from the base model. I would do the 12-core Xeon. I have an 8-core iMac Pro now, so part of it is I would want to feel like I had something faster, and I'd have the faster RAM, which would be nice. And I would go to the either 2 or 4 terabyte SSD. I have the 1 terabyte in my iMac Pro now, and I'm forever running out of space. And that's with 2 external SSDs that are also filling up. So I would probably go for the 4 terabyte SSD. 580X is not a great GPU, but as far as starting out, like I wouldn't upgrade and upgrade at some point in the future if I felt like I needed it. But that's where I would go.
Yeah, the GPU feels like the thing that's probably the easiest thing to upgrade anyway.
You can just go get it, and that's something down the road. I would definitely do Apple Care, which is only $299 on this machine, which doesn't seem right. It seems like it should be more expensive.
But it's $499 on the display.
On the Pro Display.
Which I do understand, because I figure the display is probably replacement only in most instances.
Yeah. And they're not combined. So in the past, you could buy Apple Care for your Mac Pro, and it would cover the Apple Display if you bought them at the same time. Not true this time. So that SKU that I would build is $8,548. I'm looking at it in a shopping cart right now. So
do you want to know what mine would be?
yes, please.
So I would do the same. I would do the 12-core GPU. I would bump up to 48 gigabytes of RAM, because it's like £200 more. I'm already in so deep, I might as well double the RAM for not that much more money compared to the overall machine. I would do 2 terabytes of storage, because that's what I have in my iMac Pro, and I would put the wheels on it.
Yeah, I thought about the wheels a lot. In my studio, where it would sit, there's like a rug, and it's kind of I don't know how to describe it. It's slippery, like it's not a big like thick carpet. It's like a rug you see like in a doorway, like coming in and out of a shop or something. I have that because my studio's in the backyard, and basically it's like leaves and stuff coming here. I didn't want something that would get torn up. And so it would actually slide really easily on the feet, I think. I do have a little bit worry about the height, and so the wheels make it taller. So I would do the feet, I think. But yeah, the RAM and the GPU for my needs, I could needs. I don't need this computer. Like the iMac Pro is enough computer for me. I max out the iMac Pro on a regular basis, but it's fine. Like this is not about need. Jason, I don't need this computer. I understand that. But I would like to have it. Like it is a desire, a thing that I would like to have because I really like the Mac, and it would be fun to have the nicest Mac available. And I've never had that before until the iMac Pro.
So this is one of those situations where the exchange rate stuff is so because of the value, right? You're at so much money that it's going to be very difficult. So your configuration, right? So it was 12 core and 2 terabytes, right? They're the only two things you added. That would come out to $9,771.
Yeah.
For me, like, because it would be $7,418 for me. So it's like $1,000 more.
It is very expensive, and there's like it's hard to talk about money, right? Like, so it's like embarrassing to be considering this. In a way.
I'm not. I mean,
but
you can if you want to. Like, you go ahead and consider it, but like, I'm not even thinking about it.
Yeah, because
like, I would want the monitor too.
And
I'm not going to do that.
That's something I want to talk about. So the reasonable choice is the LG 5K, right? The Pro Display XDR is not. It's so overkill for what I need. It's really expensive. I don't want a 32-inch display, so I'm not considering that at all. I will say though, I feel like a lot of people poop all over the LG 4K and 5K displays who don't actually have them. So like we have a 4K in our house. My wife uses it with her MacBook Air, and you know what? It's not the most beautiful display on the planet. It's a little clunky. It's ugly and black plastic. The panel is good though. It is not glass covered, so it is shiny but not like covered in glass shiny. So it's a different type of deal. Mm-hmm. But it's integrated really well with Mac OS, so the volume and brightness buttons all work. It's got some USB-C ports out the back, so I have her Time Machine, and she has a external SSD for her Photos library. So there's one cable to plug in her MacBook Air. It's not ideal. I wish Apple would basically take the iMac or take the Pro Display XDR design, even if you don't need all the fans and stuff, make a 5K 27-inch version and put it on sale. And I think people like developers or anyone not a video editor looking at this computer would buy that in a heartbeat. I don't understand why it's not for sale now. I think Apple's clearly aware the Pro Display is not for everybody, and I think they understand that they've left a hole in the market. So maybe it's coming, maybe it's not. But the 5K LG, yeah, it's not awesome. It's not beautifully Apple crafted aluminum. John Siracusa can't sit in front of it, but it's a good panel, and it's the best thing out there if you want to use it with macOS because it has the integration, and it's something that I could put on my desk. And yeah, if they release something nicer, it'd be tempting, but it doesn't spoil the rest of the system for me. Like some people seem so allergic to it,
yeah,
and I think a lot of people haven't had actual time with it. Like the 4K that my wife has is great, and she wanted the smaller size. I offered her the 27 5K, and she wanted where her desk is. Like she just wanted something a little smaller. It's a totally fine display. So I think that you can do the Mac Pro and put the LG on it, and you're not spoiling it somehow. I think that notion's a little bit silly.
Yeah, I think like just in this fantasy world where I would spend that kind of money on buying one, my kind of thinking would be like the thing that I purchased that I like and is cool sits under the desk.
Yeah.
And then I'm looking at a monitor which isn't as cool.
Sure.
And there is a matching cool monitor. And I think it would bother me too much.
Yeah.
That's what it's like, super wild, right? And again, like I am not justifying that money, right? Because like the in no world should a monitor cost as much as the computer that I'm pairing it with. Mm-hmm. Like that just seems madness. But it's just like I can see how people get into that situation where like if you're dead set on buying one and there is like this matching screen, it just is like, it's just upsetting.
Yeah, well, the Pro Display XDR tips Apple's hand that this is a system designed for video editing, right? Like that is their, and maybe that's the makeup of the Pro Workflow team. Maybe it's that's, they have data saying that's a really big audience. Apple has said that their biggest pro market is developers. This is not a computer for developers. It's a computer
No.
for video editing. And that's that's its primary purpose, I think. That's definitely, at the very least, that's the narrative Apple's telling about it, because everyone who got one is a video editor. They didn't give one of these to someone writing an iOS app. I think that's telling. They didn't give it to photographers. They gave it to people making video. And
Yeah, they don't have an afterburner card for Xcode.
Right. It's and SwiftUI could probably use it, because it seems like SwiftUI is very difficult to develop with. So we can have that argument about who this computer's for, who Apple had in mind, and there's no doubt in my mind that the Pro Display XDR is the biggest sign that this is not necessarily a computer for people like me and you. It's not necessarily a computer for developers. It's not even a computer for enthusiasts, because it's too expensive for that sort of market. Now, was that the right call? I don't know. Time will tell. I think if Apple has a 5K display at WWDC that matches this in design but is way less expensive, then maybe they've got the message. And so I want to make it clear from my point of view that Apple should have a less expensive display that doesn't have all the nits and all the color stuff. Like, make a nice display, hollow out an iMac, put a Thunderbolt port in the back of it, and call it a day. Whether we see it or not, it's a different story. But that's, who this computer is for. The display says a lot about, I think. This is sometimes on the show we buy things. That's not happening today.
Come on.
It's
come on.
Just
Come
do it.
on.
I have it in a cart, but I'm walking away
You have it in the cart? What'd you put it in the cart for?
because I wanted to see it with tax and everything. So I wanted to. You can check out with Apple Pay. That's a very expensive Apple Pay purchase.
That wouldn't work.
Remove.
Surely.
No. This is a deal where like you have to call your bank because they lock your card instantly. But
Yeah.
Yes.
People have asked me what I'm going to do. I'm not doing it right now. I want to see how it goes. And my iMac Pro has a home if I do this, which helps offset the price, obviously. But I feel like I'm in violation of Snell's law. Like, this is something that I am not doing out of need, but he'll settle down. John Voorhees, any closing words on the Mac Pro from you?
Not on the Mac Pro, but I just want to give an update. I think Federico has fallen asleep.
He took his power naps.
Yeah, I woke him up. I'm sorry.
Well, John, thanks for joining us.
Sure, no problem.
You're staying with your Mac Mini setup. It sounds like you're not pulling the trigger.
No, I'm not. Mac Pro is not in my future at all. I mean, I'm really happy with my Mini. It's been really the best Mac I've had in a while. I was not that happy with, like a lot of people, with my MacBook Pro, and I'm still
weird.
using that. It's I brought it with me to Rome, and I'll use it when I'm on the road. But the Mini is my day-to-day Mac, and I love it a lot.
Yeah, it's solid. And if you don't need a lot of GPU performance because it just has integrated Intel graphics, the Mac Mini is awesome.
Right.
I think if you're a developer where you're mostly using CPU, like a loaded Mac Mini is a much better choice budget-wise.
And I figure, too, I can always use an eGPU if I wanted to with that box, with the Mac Mini. I don't really have the need for that right now, but it's good to know that I've got it there if I want it. So I've been keeping my eye on those to see what the options are, but no plans on buying that either right now.
Okay. I just wanted to check in. So you're I think you're my closest friend running a Mac Mini full time. Like, I've got one, but it's a home server, so it's a little bit different. And Myke has one that is a home server, but you're using it every day. And Federico has one, but he's not my friend.
No, and he doesn't use it every single day either.
It's just for podcasting.
Right.
Well, John, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me, guys.
If you're not following John online, John, where can people find you real quick before we let you go?
They can find me at macstories.net writing, and I'm at John Voorhees on Twitter and Instagram.
This episode of Connected is also brought to you by Bombas. The holidays are here. Maybe you're getting that holiday gift shopping done, and super comfortable Bombas socks should be on your list. I've got several pairs of Bombas socks. I've got most of mine are the low cut ones, but I recently picked up some like warmer ones that come up higher for winter. It's cold. You don't want your ankles to be cold. I'm not cool anymore, so it's fine. And Bombas socks are excellent. They look good. They're comfortable. They're holding up really well, and I've just really been happy with them. The Bombas mission goes a lot further than comfort, though. Socks are the #1 requested item at homeless shelters, and that's why for every pair that you buy, Bombas donates a pair to someone in need. So you can do your holiday gift shopping and know you're doing some good in the world, too. That's super cool. Bombas socks are built with extra cushioning, so whether you're walking the dog, chilling at home, carrying a Mac Pro around, you'll be comfortable. They provide support in places you didn't even know you needed, like your arches. In fact, each sock is built with a special arch support system. It's not too tight. It's not going to constrict your foot, but it really makes a big difference. And I don't know if you've ever noticed that annoying toe seam that socks have, they rub you the wrong way, just the wrong place. Bombas got rid of that ridge. They've come up with a new way to make socks stay together, and so they're smooth across the top of your foot and much more comfortable.
Sock innovation, Stephen.
Sockivation. Sockivation. That's what they're about. You can stock up on socks for everything. Dress socks for work. Performance socks for working out. Limited edition holiday socks, which is a lot of fun. Bombas is a gift that everyone will love. Visit bombas.com/connected to get 20% off your first purchase. That's BOMBAS.com/connected for 20% off. Bombas.com/connected. Our thanks to Bombas for the support of this show and all of Relay FM. Federico, are you back?
Yes, I'm back. I was following really carefully the entire conversation. I bought a Mac Pro in the meantime.
Wow.
Oh, we influenced you.
Yeah. Do you think that I bought one during that segment?
Yeah, I think you did.
I did not.
He's probably returned it already,
Did
though.
not.
Yeah, it's probably bought 2 of them because then he got to figure it out. And he's going to break one of them because that's what he does.
Drop it down the stairs. Federico,
Yeah.
I have a piece of Mac Pro related content for you specifically.
Please do share.
I have done a complete flip on the Mac Pro and Cybertruck.
You have seen the light?
So now that I've seen pictures of the Cybertruck in the real world, I hate it. And now that I'm seeing the Mac Pro in the real world, I've come to like the design.
Right?
So I have done
Yes.
a complete flip on both of those things. That the staged photos of the Mac Pro, or like in a like stage environment, I didn't like it. And in the stage environment, I kind of was interested in the Cybertruck. But now, like, there's those pictures of Elon like driving around in a car park, and he drove over a traffic cone or whatever. It just looks in around other cars, it is ludicrous. On its own, I still think it's got a coolness to it, but like in a movie prop kind of way. When you see it in the real world, it doesn't work. But with the Mac Pro, I think in an office or whatever, or like in a cool studio, Mac Pro looks awesome. But when it was just like on its own on a plinth or in a video, I didn't like it. So that's where I am with those.
I'm very pleased to hear this. I think the Mac Pro in real life office setups, it commands a certain attention
Yes.
that really makes it stand out. And you can tell, like, it's one of those objects that you can tell at a glance, oh, this is expensive and powerful. Like, you can just tell. The Cybertruck, you look at it and you see, well, this is like a combination of all human evil in the form of
Where
a
it's
car.
like, oh,
So,
well,
like-
I guess the police are taking over, I suppose, is what's happening.
it's like a futuristic police car.
It looks too scary. It's too intimidating.
Look,
I don't like it.
it's. I think the Cybertruck. I really do believe the most acceptable use case will be as a police vehicle. It's perfect for that. It's intimidating. It's big and bulky, and it can probably go fast. And
Throw a lot of criminals in the back.
You can throw a lot of criminals in the back. Like, come on, guys, let's go to the station. Yeah, sure. So,
Oh, boy.
yeah, it's going to be perfect for that. Now, the topic today is not the Cybertruck. Unfortunately, I would love to talk more about that, but it's not. Today, so I created a reminder in the Reminders app for this months ago. I don't remember how I remembered, but it was there today. Today marks the 5th anniversary of the launch of Workflow on the App Store. 5 years ago, December 11, 2014, Workflow.
After like a 12-year beta period.
After a year-long beta period,
Yeah.
so Ari and Conrad and the rest of the team, very famously, they had a teaser for Workflow, for the app that would eventually become Workflow. I believe they showed it off at a hackathon or something, and they were like 14 or 15.
That was in 2014, January 2014.
January. And so they show off this app at this hackathon, and a bunch of people on Twitter are sending me this video and this link, like, hey, have you seen this? This is incredible. And John and I were just talking about it, actually. When I first saw that demo, I thought it was fake. I thought
Because
it
the
was
video's super weird. I'm looking at it now, and it's like
Yes.
it's like all warped and stuff. I don't know what
Yes.
it's like. It's like some weird optical image stabilization thing, which makes it look like it's like After Effects.
Yeah,
It's very strange.
it looks very strange, and it looks like one of those jailbreak utilities.
Yes,
And I remembered getting in touch with those guys and saying, I think it's awesome, but if this is a jailbreak thing, I'm afraid I don't want to use it because I don't jailbreak my phone anymore.
Yep.
And I remember Ari saying, no, this is all native Apple APIs, and we're basically taking inspiration from Automator for the Mac, and we're doing a version for iOS. And I thought that was crazy, and I thought, these kids, maybe they have this idea. Apple is never gonna approve them. Let's see what they do, and let's see what happens. Of course, they go silent, and silly me, I thought, yeah, of course, the idea didn't work out. They're never gonna do workflow. Then at some point in July of 2014, I got an email from Ari saying, so I don't know if you remember, we sent you a demo, a proof of concept of workflow a few months ago, and we're now ready to have a beta. And so I think it was August 2014 that I got the first beta of workflow. And they needed they went through a bit of a issue with Apple, the rocky start of the relationship, because the app wasn't getting approved. It was supposed to launch at some point in September or October, but it launched in December. Now, I was looking back through my review of Workflow 1.0, and I think it's really remarkable to see just how much of the foundation of the app that is now called Shortcuts was already right there in Workflow. Because if you look past the UI changes, which, by the way, the app kind of looked better than all the buttons looked like
things
buttons.
like that.
I don't want to be one of... Look, I don't want to be one of those people.
The composer looks way better.
The composer looks way better. It's so much more cleaner. I do like the natural language editor of iOS 13, but man, those variables and the fact that the variables have a blue background and the blue background blends in with another blue background, that's horrible design. Like, who came up with that? Anyway, besides the visual aspect, it's really incredible just how much was already right there. So like conditional blocks and repeat blocks, but really at the core of it, the editor design and the idea of taking system features and exposing them as steps, as actions. And at the very core of Workflow was the content graph engine, which Shortcuts is still using today. So the reason why you can put together a shortcut, and whether you're dealing with a photo or a URL, and if you put an action after that requires a specific type of file, you don't have to care about that. Shortcuts takes care of the entire conversion for you. That engine is still in Shortcuts today, and it's grown more powerful, of course, but it's still right there. It's the content graph. It's part of the reason, part of the technologies that Apple bought and brought along with Workflow and turned into Shortcuts. All of that was already right there in the first version of Workflow. And of course, the app has changed a lot over the years. Since they became an Apple product, the Siri integration and automation this year, they've been able to do things that they were probably never gonna be able to do if they stayed independent. Maybe they would have gone a different route with Workflow. Maybe if they hadn't been acquired, they would have gone the web service and subscription route. Maybe Workflow would have become like the new Zapier for iOS, entirely web-based and web-based actions. Maybe they would have done what Pushcut is doing today with notifications and subscriptions and all that stuff. But instead, with going with Apple allowed them to dig even deeper into the system and come up with these new system hooks, which is why, thinking about it 5 years on, like what's next for Shortcuts. And I do believe that more than ever, we need to see what happens. And in fact, I believe, Myke, you talked about this with Jason maybe 2 weeks ago on Upgrade. The first year of the transition from Workflow to Shortcuts, we saw the Siri integration and the Siri shortcuts, and that was fine. But then we saw this year the new editor and the new natural language approach to building, putting together actions and automation, and some new system integrations. But it feels like this first couple of years was really the Shortcuts team getting their affairs in order and building, or maybe sort of rebuilding the foundation of the app to make sure that it works better with iOS. But I feel like now it's time to build upon it and to build new stuff. And automation is a first step, but there's so much more that they can do. Like and we mentioned this before on the show, every Apple app should have shortcuts actions. Like if it's an iOS feature, it should also be a shortcuts action. And there's still so much more on iOS and iPadOS that is not integrated with shortcuts. And so I just wanted to mention this anniversary on the show while Siri just dictated all that I said on my watch.
Perfect.
The Shortcuts team, they're looking out for you. They want to know what's going on.
It is actually a pretty accurate dictation, but at the end it said, I'm sorry. Siri,
It's okay,
on.
iPhone.
It's all right. You can activate yourself every once in a while. I think it's remarkable what the workflow team was able to do as an independent company. I think it was maybe it's too soon to tell right now, but I think it was a good idea to go with Apple because we have the third-party shortcuts utilities today, the web-based, the notification stuff. I think if workflows stayed independent and went in that direction, I think we were better off with this solution, with shortcuts becoming...
They would have been distracted. They would have had to have made it a profitable business in the long run, right? Like that was going to be difficult for them. Not it's difficult. That is a difficult thing to maintain, right? Like it takes a lot of work, and maybe they are better placed focusing on the product inside of Apple than they would be trying to create a product which is useful to investors or to customers.
My big question for the next 5 years, right, of shortcuts, I guess I want to see what Apple is going to do in terms of like, what's the real direction for the app here? Because it feels like on one hand, Apple wants to push this idea of shortcuts for the masses, so everybody can use shortcuts. And you see, the simplification of the editor and the natural language UI for actions and parameters and automation, and this idea that shortcuts is more than features for power users. But on the other hand, I have to wonder, like, just how many so-called regular people are actually using shortcuts. And so should maybe Apple double down on the power user aspect of it and say, look, we get it. Shortcuts is used by power users, and so we're going to make it a professional app for everybody. Or maybe they can do both at the same time, though I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what happens in terms of, is this going to be simplified more and more as time goes on, and it becomes this system feature to build automations for HomeKit and for your Apple Watch and for Siri, that kind of stuff? Or is Apple going to get back to saying, look, we need to do more power user features, like we used to before, like the workflow team used to before? Because if you think about it, it's been a while since we got real power user actions and features in shortcuts. All the scripting actions, for example, that we have today in shortcuts, they were, most of them really, 90% of them, they were built by the workflow team. They weren't built by Apple. They were carried over by Apple, but not built by shortcuts as an Apple product. So I want to see what direction Apple goes with for the next 5 years. I feel pretty optimistic at the moment, though, things can always change, and we've seen Apple try, these experiments for a couple of years and then sort of forget about them and be like, yeah, we tried, didn't really work out. So the fact that it's a built-in app inspires confidence. The fact that it's so integrated with Siri inspires confidence. I don't think it's going away anytime soon, but I want to see what happens in terms of, now that we've redone the editor and now that we have Siri integration and now that we have parameters, what's next? So that'll be my question for the next year and beyond.
That's sort of the opposite of how I felt in the beginning. I was worried early on that it was like, oh, this is doing like weird edge case stuff and Apple's just going to shut them down, right? And I was hesitant to trust workflow for a lot of stuff in those early days. Like, I don't want to build a whole system in here and then it get, killed from on high, because we've seen that over the years, and that fear, to your point, has been totally taken away now that it's a system app, and now it's all your concerns. Will Apple continue to push it forward? Will they, have bug fixes on a regular basis? All those sort of Apple app questions have replaced those early fears for me.
So yeah, I think that's pretty much it. 5 years of workflow. Congrats to the team who actually made it happen. And, I didn't believe it at the time, and I'm glad I was wrong. And now I guess best of luck for the next 5 years. I think we're all curious to see what happens. So I'm optimistic, but also you never know with Apple. So we'll see.
Well, I think that does it for this week. If you want to find links to stuff we spoke about, head on over to relay.fm/connected/273. While you're there, you can get in touch. There's an email link where you can find us on Twitter. You can find Myke there as IMYKE. You can find Federico on Twitter at Viticci, VITICCI, and you can follow me there as ISMH. Special thanks to our guest, John Voorhees, and to our sponsors, Squarespace, ExpressVPN, and Bombas. Until next time, gentlemen, say goodbye.
Arrivederci.
Cheerio.
Adios.